Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyone Deserves a Chance. Today, we have a special guest, Rory Cummins. He's a real estate agent at EXP Realty currently, and he's a husband and a father, a broker at EXP Realty, coach at BnB Wealth Academy, and STR co-owner at CoolBnbs. Thank you so much for accepting our invite. Today, we are going to talk about mindset, we're going to talk about resources, and we're going to talk about real estate. More than anything else, for people that have experience and people that do not have experience, we're working on bridging that gap for you guys. Thank you so much, Rory, for coming in.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, let's do this.
All right, always a pleasure having you. And I just want to give people a little bit of context how we met. We met through M1, right, Rory? We met in 2018, 2019, in M1, March to a Million. It was a group created by Rock Thomas, and it was a branch, I believe, of GoBundance at the time. Rock Thomas was in Canada, but he was one of the founding members. And this is how I joined. I was looking to get into GoBundance, and I got redirected based on my net worth at the time. I got redirected to M1. So how did you hear about M1 at the time?
Man, believe it or not, I went to an event with Hal Elrod, best year ever back in 2015 in San Diego, and I met a guy there named Jesse Harless. I don't know if you know Jesse.
I know Jesse from Boston. I went when he released his first book.
Okay, yeah. So I connected with him. We stayed in touch throughout 2016, and he was already in M1, and he ended up getting me in. I think it was like late 2017 is when I joined into M1 from there, because that's basically the mastermind he was in. So seemed like some like-minded people.
So are you still doing the cold showers?
Man, believe it or not, my goal this year is to do 100 cold showers. I said, if I can get through 100 for the year, I think I'm up to like 40 so far. So I'm kind of on track. It's like almost mid-year.
Congratulations. So we're going to plug him right here. Yeah. He wrote a book, and I had the pleasure of reading the first draft, I believe, and I got inspired. And he created the first challenge within M1. If we can do a 30-day challenge of cold showers, and I took that first plunge, and ridiculously enough, I kept it going for years. I'm still doing it today.
Oh, nice, man. You're ahead of me.
I'm doing it every single day, believe it or not. But I don't take the whole cold shower. I'm just stirring it off and cold at the end of the shower, and then I keep it for 3 minutes at the end. That it works out for me. It created a routine, and I feel comfortable at that level.
Yeah, but, that's strong.
Yeah, I've been doing it since 2018, 2019. Again, I don't know exactly. I wanted to put down a date, but then I realized when I put dates down, there's a reason for it. My brain reverts back to that, and then I keep track of it. I don't want to keep track of it. I just want to make it a habit. So just now is a habit for me. It's been going on for a while. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your story. How did you end up in real estate? How did you start this journey?
I'll give you the full story. So, like a lot of other investors, I think I was 22 or 23 at the time and read Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know what it is about that book. It's like the segue.
So many people have done that.
It's got to be like 80%. I read Think and Grow Rich as well in the same year. And another book I read was called Multiple Streams of Income. It's probably lesser known. It was written by Robert Allen. And those three books were like my foundation. Like, man, I got to get in this, right? Because the idea of, I'm a travel nut. So the idea of having passive income to be able to then travel and not be tied in one location to a standard job was really appealing. So my very first purchase was my primary home, but I house hacked before house hacking was really a thing. So it was basically, buy the home. I renovated it all myself, like hands-on, which was the dumbest idea. I would not recommend people do that. I think I lost like 25 pounds in the process. But anyway, brought my roommates with me that were in the apartment. And then from there, bought another house, brought those roommates with me, rented out the first house, eventually refinanced that. And then I started buying more properties, and I basically house hacked 4 purchases in a row that I would live in while also building a smaller portfolio of long-term rentals. That was back in 2006. Yeah, so I mean, that I was still doing a W-2 job though at the time. I was a builder, and ended up in another job after that I really did not like. And I ended up quitting my job and traveling the world for a year and a half. Met my wife in the process, and just decided to kind of fulfill a dream of world travel. So that was really the hinge point, Silvius, where I just kind of grabbed life by the horns, kind of just took charge of my own future, if you will, instead of kind of going through the motions. So when I came back, I still worked for the man a little bit, but I knew I wanted more. And basically in 2015, I just went full time into real estate. I just said, like, I'm just going to bet on myself. And I went full time into real estate agency as a broker. I was flipping houses, and I was building an investment portfolio in both long-term rentals and short-term rentals, and doing remodels and new construction. So it was like a mix of four things. And to this day, I'm still doing all of that.
How did you end up becoming a builder? Because that's not something that people go into right away. I know it takes a lot of experience and stuff like that. So what was your first?
You just got to build a lot of tree houses when you're a kid, I guess. I literally built like 5 tree houses when I was a kid, and then started working construction in high school for my friend's father. And then I was basically a laborer for from the age of around 14, 15. I was still doing construction jobs through college. I was working as a roofer, and we were building decks and stuff. And then I came out of college, started framing houses and doing other work. And then finally, I got a job in management for construction. And that's how I got into the building side. I got recruited from a big nationwide builder as a superintendent, basically. So during the time I was with them, I think I've basically built and closed about 250 homes. Maybe.
Wow. Okay, that's a big number. So you build up experience very quickly, hands-on experience, being on the job. You were the carpenter, you were everything, the plumber, right? You got to see everything.
Yeah.
From the startup. Now, when you did your travel, did you end up selling your properties, or you kept some of them, or was that your cushion?
Yeah. So by the time I left to travel the world, I think I had 5 properties. They were all single family except one multifamily. And, I basically rented out the house I was in to just leave, and I sold my car and everything. I basically, when I came back, that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to build this portfolio. I'm going to scale this real estate thing. And that's when I was making the moves just to go full time with it. And I realized, like, you got to have vertical income, right? So that therein lies the real estate agency or the brokerage side of me going out to, get into sales. But really that was just an avenue so that I could continue to invest with all the excess income I could generate, to build short-term rentals and buy more long-term rentals. I've done one syndication, an apartment building that we owned, and luckily we got out of that last year before everything kind of changed. But yeah, that was my foray into it. And it was really just a matter of, I'm more of the buy and hold guy when it comes to real estate. I've flipped a ton of homes, but again, that's just vertical income so that you can reinvest into long-term assets. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I mean, I didn't want to wake up when I'm 60 and still pounding the pavement trying to figure out where my money's going to come from next month. I've been on the early retirement plan since I was in my late 20s. That was my main reason of getting into M1 with you, was to go down that path and be surrounded by others in that space. So,
well, I think that was, to me, that was the stepping stone of my development. That was the best thing I could have done. The return of investment, and we can talk numbers now, it's been so many years now. I think it was about $7,000. That's how much I paid for the version that I got. And I think after my first year, I made my first $100,000.
Yeah.
And it was because I was surrounded with like-minded individuals. I took a course for $400 or $500, I think, Marcos with Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And I took it a year later, towards the end of it. And I ended up doing that full time. And that kind of transition into a full real estate investor. I started buying my own portfolio, my own houses. That's how I started building a portfolio here in the United States. Yes, I want to go back to one of the biggest aha moments. The reason why I'm asking this question is because there are two questions. First is what's the biggest aha moment? The second one, what was the biggest failure, the biggest mistake that you think you did into your real estate endeavors? And again, the reason that I'm asking this question is because people out there are paralyzed with fear, analysis paralysis. They buy the books, they get to these seminars. Everybody dumps a whole lot of information on them and they really don't know how to grasp it. And it seems like you're a savvy investor. You started from a young man building, and then you landed into the career, then ended up building your empire or your portfolio, let's put it that way. So what was your biggest aha moment when you decided to break the chain, or what was it that made you? It was the trip, the fact that you traveled the world, was the wife, the girlfriend, becoming a father? What was it for you?
So the biggest aha moment for me was when I was still working for the man, and I realized, and I gained this insight probably from the books that I was reading. I was basically expanding my mind to create that growth mindset and think entrepreneurial in that mindset, right? Like you're not trying to have the W-2 mindset where safe and secure and predictable and all that, right? So I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone. My aha moment was my employer basically is paying me less than I'm worth to the market. That's how they can afford to keep me on payroll. So when I realized that, I'm like, so if I go bet on myself, there's still that margin of more of what I'm worth to the market. And it was basically just a decision in saying, hey, I want to control my outcome and my future. I'm going to go make this happen, and I'm going to bet on myself. And the other aha was basically, what's the worst that can happen, right? Like I quit my job to go travel the world at age 30. Like everybody thought I was insane. And it did feel very uncomfortable to do that. But I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to come home broke, and I'm going to go back and get a job. I'm not going to put my dreams on hold for 30 years and assuming I'm even going to live that long, right? And then when I said I'm going to quit my job again and go full time into real estate, I knew I could probably go back and get another job with another employer. So why not take the chance? Get out of your comfort zone, take a risk, and make it happen. So I totally resonate with what you just said, though. A lot of people are risk averse, but when you really break it down and think about what is the worst that can happen to you as you go through that process, and you realize how many resources you actually have at your disposal, like it's so much easier now than it was 15 years ago. I mean, think about how many videos and podcasts on YouTube that will coach you essentially for free with knowledge. You can get audiobooks now for next to nothing through Audible. Like you have all the resources that you need. You just need to take action and go out and do it. So I basically just bet on myself, and it wasn't, that first year sucked. I'm not gonna lie. We were doing everything that we could to make ends meet. I mean, we were Airbnb-ing our basement. I was selling stuff on Craigslist. I was going out trying to cultivate clients. I was taking on remodel jobs I didn't want to do from friends and family that I could manage. And I was basically trying to find flip deals. At the end of the year, I made less that first year than I made at my W-2 that I had left. The second year, I doubled it. And the third year, I almost tripled it. So, you just have to get started and take the chance, and you're going to learn through the process. And you have to change your mindset on failure. Otherwise, you're never going to grow. Like the whole point of failure is to grow from your mistakes so that you can, then succeed in whatever you're trying to do. So I think people that don't embrace that are basically doing themselves a huge disservice, and they're probably going to have regret when they get into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I would rather wake up and, not have regrets about what I didn't do in life than the mistakes that I actually made. So, yeah.
I love that part. I remember when I had a girlfriend when I was 14, 15 years old, and she was saying that all the time, and I couldn't resonate. But I do now. And yeah, it takes a little bit of development. I totally agree with you. I think personal development is key into this process. The like you said, the foundation for you were the books, but you also leverage your knowledge into the field. You leverage every bit of it since you built your first treehouse, right? So
Yeah.
you didn't just quit your job not knowing what you're going to do next. You always had a fallback into the W2, which pretty much everyone that has a W2 job has that fallback, unless you work for, I don't know, high contract, government contract that you can't get back or something crazy like that, then we don't recommend doing that.
Yeah.
I keep saying, and I want to repeat it here with you, please don't quit your job just because we say so. Please don't
Oh
quit
yeah,
your
no,
job
yeah, for
if you don't have
sure.
any reserves. Please don't quit your job. Try to become a flipper because you built a tree house when you were 16-year-old and now it's 52. You want to become a builder and a flipper. I hear a lot of people starting out with flipping. I am right now have mixed feelings about it because I did it. I've learned. I think is a great way, if not one of the only ways to learn the ins and outs of construction. But that's not the only way now. Now I know that you can, I don't know, rent to rent, right? Do arbitration model for Airbnb. There's not much renovation when you get a new renovated property, right? If you don't have any experience in it, just get a new one. There are opportunities investing passively, and I'm going to plug it in right here. I do work with Legends Equity Group as a syndicator. We do have active deals throughout the country. We have deals in the Sun Belt area, and we are buying buildings pretty much everywhere where the deal presents itself. And I'm sure you do the same way. It's better to keep it within an hour drive if you can, but we have boots on the ground. The members of my team are everywhere, about 60 people. We live in Florida. We got people in Texas. I live in Pennsylvania right now, kind of everywhere. And the number of deals we're doing, it's kind of correlated with our income. So we have to do deals.
Mm-hmm.
Always going to keep them in the pipelines. But there's a way of investing passively if you want to. And I'm talking about passive. If you want to be active, then you got to be a general partner into a deal.
Yeah.
You got to look for a mentorship program or something or somehow or somebody that's going to allow you to penetrate that space and get in without much knowledge so you can learn from inside out. That's one way of doing it. And the second way of doing it is if you have a job, you're, I don't know, I'm going to put it out there, you're a doctor or you're making over $200,000 a year, you got to be an accredited investor most likely in order
Yeah.
to access these investments. You can invest passively by being a limited partner into a syndication model. That's not the only model out there. There are a lot of them. There are triple net leases, there's syndication model. There are many ways of investing passively in real estate. But I keep it real because I believe real estate is real. It's a tangent asset. And this is what we like. This is what we keep them tangent. We get a lot of people that have this mindset. They want to see it, drive it, talk to the tenants. You get all that in real estate. And then the numbers. Let's bring it to the reality of numbers. When you analyze a deal, you analyze the deal based on the numbers. The numbers are real. That's how much the rent is. That's how much the expenses are. We don't approximate into the future without knowing how much the insurance quote is or how much we're going to pay today or tomorrow for it. Yeah. So that's why I keep it real. It's real. Now, Rory, please tell me a little bit more about the business that you're running right now currently, because you have the Wealth Academy and you decided to build this. We had this conversation a little bit off screen. You are a co-owner of CoolBnbs. So how is that working out for you right now? Like what are you up to?
Things are busy. Basically right now business is the CoolBnbs is our platform of our portfolio of all the short-term rentals that we own, right? We do manage for others. It's not our main stream of business. Like we're not out there promoting our, a management model for recruiting new owners. It just kind of happens that people want us to manage for them. But CoolBnbs is basically the company we have created to bundle all of our properties together so that we can direct book, and just manage everything under one umbrella. BnB Wealth Academy was basically founded because we kept coaching family and friends on a weekly basis, hours on end of how we're doing what we're doing in the short-term rental space. So we, now have a course that we are going to be teaching people. It's basically runs on 14-week increments where we're holding people's hand through the process of going, how to pick a market, how to pick the right property, how to assemble your team, all the ins and outs of that whole process on running numbers and, giving people the tools they need to correctly purchase, and avoid all the pitfalls. of the process. And then on the back end, we'll have a second course that's basically coaching people how to scale it, how to create the systems and software, how to maximize profits, how to best manage and everything else for success, like all the other nuts and bolts once you own a property. So super excited about that. And then I still got the brokerage going with EXP. We've got a team in place on both sides of that. So I don't know where that's going to go over time. The short-term rentals is basically, taking the lion's share of all of my focus at this point, and it's what I'm most excited about. So I see that expanding quite a bit over the years to come. And then on the brokerage side of things, it's something I've been in for more than 10 years at this point, and I enjoy it. But at the same time, I don't know how long I'll be stationary in the city I live in, and where that's going to go with the team that might be behind that to buy and sell. And I would say about half my client base right now is investors, long-term and short-term rental, and flippers, and everybody else that's in development. So yeah, it keeps me busy, but business is good. So
Roughly, how many properties do you manage right now?
We're about at the 20 mark right now on what we own and manage. We will have a little bit over 20 by the end of this year. And that's basically just on the short-term rentals. Also have some long-term rental. And then, I see that scaling dramatically. Like we'll definitely bring on at least 5 or 6 more next year, possibly 10, on what we own. And then I don't know, like what's going to happen with the management side of things. But right now we're just focused on building the team that we've got in place so that we can handle the volume. So getting really focused on the ins and outs of scaling, if you will.
Yeah, it's very important. The reason I always look for a reason behind it. And what's going on is into the syndication model, there are some tax advantages for people that own a short-term rental. And one of the tax advantages of investing in syndication model is that owning a short-term rental is kind of one of the loopholes out there that creates the opportunity for you to become a professional real estate guy, right? A professional real estate individual that qualifies you for extra tax benefits, especially the deductions up front when we do the depreciation on the buildings. You're fully taking advantage of the system. If you're not in real estate, there are still deductions, obviously, but they're not going the same way as they are for real estate professionals. So owning one real estate as a form of Airbnb is considered active. You have to do over 750 hours a year of active. And there's a lot of debate around it because it's not just the 750 hours. You have to prove, if you have a W-2 job and you work 1,800 hours in your W-2 job, you have to work another 1,800 hours into the real estate field in order to counterbalance. The IRS won't give you a pass just because you work 750 hours. It has to be over 50% more real estate than your W-2 job in order to qualify for that. And I had a long conversation yesterday with a CPA, just explaining us how that goes for our future investors. All right. Now, can you please tell us a little bit about the pitfalls? Like what happened what was one of the biggest things that you think shifted your perspective? And again, I'm bringing it in because it's normal. Failing, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. We just put a little bit more emotions attached to it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, for everybody out there listening, anytime you do have a huge blunder in real estate, I've had 2 that come to mind quickly. But I always tell people, think about what other dollar value you lost from the mistake or issue that you had. Just be glad that there's not another zero tied to it. Because if you're going to stay in the real estate game and you're building a career here, that same mistake, if you would have made it 10 years later, might have had an extra zero tied to it. So you lose 10,000 this year. In 5 years' time, that could have been $100,000 mistake if you didn't learn from it 5 years ago. For me, we had a 17-unit property that we were going to short term, and we bought it. I'm sorry, we were under contract on it. We were going to buy it, and during due diligence, we basically found out, you know, I don't think this podcast is long enough for me to go into detail about some of the issues we found with it once we were on site, actually digging through the property, going into foundations and stuff like this of the 17 units that were on this property. But we very quickly realized that we had a lemon of a deal, and we backed out. I mean, I think we lost. I mean, in total, I think that was like a $13,000 loss, which is no short amount of money. But at the same time, at the time, it was a lot because that was in the beginning of me building the portfolio that we have now. So that was a big deal killer. But we ended up going down into another market after that, and we were under contract on another property that was of similar dollar value. It had less units to it, but it was like a home run. So it opened up the door to find that home run that we otherwise would not have gone down. And then lastly, what we learned in that process was prices. And again, if you add another zero to that, it'd been $130,000 mistake that I might make in the future. But now, knowing what I know now from that mistake was priceless. That would be one of them. Another one was a speculative development deal that was out of country that I was tied into with another investor. It was basically, plunk down the deposit and we're going to build this development and you're going to get ownership. And that lesson there for me was, make sure that you can meet the people face to face behind the deal and actually go and see what they're actually developing before you actually plunk down money instead of it being speculative. It wasn't that, that money went to, a third world country and got scammed or something like this. But at the same time, the deal just never got developed. And I was out the full sum of money. I think that was like $23,000. So, I've had my hits to the face when it comes to real estate for sure. Those are probably the two main ones that come to mind. But to me, I don't get distraught about it or say, real estate's not my thing, I'm going to get out. It's just, again, it's just part of the process. You have to learn these mistakes and you have to grow from them. So
I'm new to the concept of adding a zero to it, so I'm always learning. Thank you so much. I took notes, I put it down on paper. It's going to stay with me for a while.
Yeah.
I always knew that I have to pay one way or the other, and sometimes I call that cost of doing business or cost of opportunity sometimes. And what a blessing you had that deal didn't close and actually opened the opportunity for the next one to come in your lap. So it's weird how the universe works sometimes, right? It wasn't for you. It was meant to be a lesson, and you guys learn very quickly from it that you end up bouncing and buying another one right away.
Yeah, so I tell clients all the time, sometimes the best deal is the one that you didn't get. It was the biggest mistake that you almost closed on. And even though it cost you money, it's way better than what would happen if you would have closed on that property and, had a sinking ship on your hands, so to speak. So
yes, definitely. So you're better off without it. That's great. That's really a great moment right there. And thank you for sharing it. It's important to me, and I'm taking lessons out of it too. Now I want to bring it home to one of my topics, one of my dear topics. You're a busy man. You're doing so many things. And as I was reading, first thing that shows up on your LinkedIn account, and by the way, if you guys want to look him up, he's on LinkedIn, and that's where you can connect. You put down husband and father first. And this is an issue that I had up until now. If you go in and look at my profile, you're going to see blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. It's all about me. Me, and I'm not giving anything professional. I mean, that is not professional out. The reason is, and I'm putting it out there, I feel a little bit vulnerable right now. I do struggle with balancing family time and business time. And I see myself as a father, but I first see myself as a provider. So I see myself as a business guy. I have this veil in front of me. The first screen that I have, it's businessman. The second one is a father. And what I see at you, and we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, you managed to remove that first veil and put the first screen being a father first and a businessman second. So the reason why I have businesses is to provide for my family. In my mind, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm a provider. That's what I do. I have to. It's a business call. It's at 8 o'clock during dinner. I have to take it. If I don't do it, then we're not going to have money to pay whatever next month or next year, which is also true and not true in the same time. And I find it more to be more not true when I'm reading your profile, husband and father, and then everything else underneath. For me, husband and father doesn't even show up. It's like private, like sacred. Reality is, I don't know how to balance my family time, and my intentional time spent with my family, it comes in on a crisis moment, and it's crisis per crisis. Like if my wife starts having an argument or we're getting into a bad spot, that's when I fall back and I do the intentional time. I know my tools, I know my books, I read, I have them. I'm going to pull them all out in a desperate measure of fixing the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, on the other hand, you're dealing with differently. You have a structure of your day. You stop your day short. You know when family time is family time, intentional time with your kids. You know how to listen to your kids. I just completed a form today, front row dads. And one of the questions there is like, you got to rate yourself when it comes down to family time. And when I did that, I have thriving marriage, which I think I scored pretty high, although I have lots of issues. I was a 7 out of 10 on a scale. And vibrant health, I'm a 7 out of 10. I feel very healthy and I'm working towards my goals. But the third one was intentional parenting. And I'm lowering my voice because this is the lowest score of all. I scored a 4. I'm intentional only in certain moments when I have to drive them to school or driving somewhere where I'm picking them up, I'm bringing them places. But I feel like the past 7 years of my daughter's life went very quickly. I have 2 kids, 4.5 and 7, and I wasn't intentional enough. I see her grown up already, and I'm almost scared of admitting that I wasn't there for her. So how do you do all this? How do you balance? Like, please give us some books, give us some reference points. You're such a busy man, and I got to thank you again that you're here with me today. You're giving me your time. I know it was a little bit of scheduling issue that we had, but how do you do this, man? How do you penetrate to make family what is supposed to be, keep it on the pedestal as being your first thing?
Yeah. So yeah, this hits home for me too, Silvius, because like I think we came from the same space right now. Like what you're saying is everything that resonates with me, especially where my mindset was 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, Rock Thomas describes it really well for males. We have this concept in our heads that we need to build the castle, and we need to keep building that castle for our family to be that's the provider analogy, right? The problem is what most men don't realize is they, in the hurriedness to build that castle and provide safety and security for their family as a provider, if they keep their head down and keep doing that, there's not going to be anybody left in that castle when they're done building. And that's what happens to all these 50 and 60-year-old men that end up getting divorced. Their kids don't want to talk to them anymore when they're older, and they have this really great business, and then they fail in their gardens of the rest of their life. And that's why mastermind groups like M1 and GoBundance are so priceless, because they keep all that in perspective, right? That concept hit home with me to the point, I've been managing multiple businesses now for years. My pod in my mastermind group of M1, who I'm still with today, really gave me a lot of direct, in your face feedback back in 2018, 2019, when I was basically, scaling my businesses to the degree that I was probably working more than 60, 70 hours a week on average every single week, and not putting my family first, right? My role as a father and husband like hit home, and I'm like, man, I need to get my stuff together here, right? So for me, it led me on this journey to go read books, put myself out there, and then really just ask other fathers and husbands that were doing it really well and say, hey man, like, what do you do? How are you doing it? How do you structure your day? How are you showing up better? And I just got hyper intentional about that, because I didn't want to be I came from a divorced family. And I wanted to be, as good of a father as I could be to my kids, but I never really knew what that meant. I never defined it because I didn't have a really good, foundation from youth, right? And then on the husband front, like this is my first marriage and hopefully my only marriage, right? So I was like, dude, there's no playbook. Like I never had a marriage coach since I got married. You need to figure this stuff out. But for me, I can tell you what's worked, and the clarity that I got. And a lot of it, again, was feedback from my pod and saying, hey, dude, like you need to make sure that, it is, I think it was a book Gary Keller had written, you can imagine life as just, you've got these balls in the air, some of those businesses are your health, your business, your family, maybe it's your faith, maybe it's, some other things that are super important to you. But if you can imagine they're all rubber balls with work, the glass ball is the family ball, right? You can't drop the glass ball because it'll shatter those relationships. Whereas the rubber ball with work, that, you can always keep working, right? Like you can work till you're in your 70s, 80s, doesn't matter. Work will always be there. Your family may not. So that was another thing that hit home for me. So what I do, man, is I just get really intentional about my time with them. So every Thursday night's date night with my wife. Obviously that's an expense that some people may not want to, incur, but I can tell you, like, whatever it costs that nanny or babysitter or whatever, is priceless.
It's cheaper than a divorce, right?
And very cheaper than a divorce. And it's great time, man. Like it's the time that we actually get to connect because we rarely have, quality time to talk during the week. And then special time with my kids is what I call it, which is basically they get to direct what we do together. And it's just like this space where daddy's not allowed to say no. I just kind of play along with whatever they want to do. And my goal was like minimum 5 minutes a day. And it's just like working out. If you work out for 5 minutes, you're going to work out for 15 or 20 or 30, right? So I just track every single morning. Did I spend special time with my kids today or yesterday or whatever? And I set a goal for myself in quantity every single year. And I track it every single morning. Did I spend special time? And then after reading Family Board Meetings, the book Family Board Meetings, like that book was very foundational in what I'm doing now this year, where I want to basically take my kids out one-on-one for a full day, no phone, like literally like leave the phone at the house or turn it off and have intentional time for the whole day with them. And then the other part was just planning epic vacations. Last year we did 6 weeks in Italy and Bali as a family. This year we're going to Iceland this summer, and that is going to be, just a really one-on-one with the family type trip where we do really crazy stuff together and create those memories. Because for me, it's what legacy am I leaving to my kids? Am I setting the example of who they're going to become and also what they're going to be like when they become parents? And when it comes to my wife, my internal goal is, am I being a best friend to her, right? Like that's what marriage is all about. So when you think about it in the context of being a best friend, it changes the dynamic of how you view that relationship. And that helps drive me to make better decisions as a husband. So it's a combination of all those things. I'm not saying it's easy because it is very hard, but for me, it's like, okay, 7 o'clock, it's family time, 6 o'clock, turn the phone off. And then on the weekends, like what can I do to minimize any type of work that can show up on a weekend? I'm not saying I don't ever work on weekends. And unfortunately, the nature of my businesses are such that weekend work sometimes plays in, but I don't make it a habit. I try to be very intentional about not making it a habit. So that's that's a lot to digest.
I wrote it down, man. Trust me, I wrote it down one by one, and I'm gonna reiterate right here. I'm gonna say it. So thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot. So it looks like you already have a system in place, and it comes down from the years of personal development and the mastermind communities. And by the way, what are the names of the mastermind communities that you're going with right now? What is a pod? Because people don't even know what a pod is.
Yeah, so I'm in 2 mastermind groups, and a pod is basically just a collection of 3, 4, 5, 6 different people, right? Typically, you want to find people that are like-minded, and you want to find people that have similar goals and have integrity, that show up and do what they say they're going to do, right? But that pod, I can tell you, if you're not in something like that, it is freaking priceless. It is free. You don't have to pay money to form something like that. But it's a group where you can get feedback from your peers, and you can also get accountability. And if you have feedback and accountability, you basically, that's the equivalent of having one or two or three coaches that you meet with every single week. Because the better they get to know you, the more blind spots they're going to point out for you. And if you're open to constructive criticism, and you're willing to take that, you will grow from it, and it's going to make your life leaps and bounds better. So, that's the value of being in a mastermind, because you're already going to be put in small groups like that. But you can definitely form one. I had one before I joined the mastermind group that it was helpful. Like, I'm in 4 pods right now. It's
Wow, congratulations.
Wow. Yeah, because I look at it like, hey, I'm going to surround myself. I'm going to get even more accountability and more feedback and advice from people that can look at my life at all angles, and I support them as well with that journey. So, it accelerates you on all fronts.
Yeah, if there is something that I'm missing right now, I'm missing that kind of accountability on a one-on-one level with people, and that's why I reached back to you, and I reached out to Roman, and I reached out to a lot of people that I've been in pods with along the years through M1 and other mastermind communities.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read this back to you. Correct me if I'm wrong. I hope I took the right notes. That's why I had my head down. Date night Thursdays, right? I wrote that down. So that's once a week. Daddy's not allowed to say no. 5 minutes per day, intentional. Family board meetings book. That's a must. I bought it. I read it once, but I did not read it. I listened to it. So my retention level was like, you have to spend intentional time, but it blurs out somehow with my priorities along the way. So I'm going to have to revisit that book. Epic vacations, 6 weeks. It sounds amazing. Bali. I did the 6 weeks actually last year, and I have so many memories. I think we created so many more memories than we could do in a whole year combined. Being the best friend to your wife, that's something that I'm gonna have to learn how to do. Right now, I'm in a different relationship with my wife. I think we're friends. We're definitely making friends right now. We're at the very beginning stages, but we're definitely not the best friends. And what we are, though, we are on the same path of development. And I just realized that, like this morning, I was a little bit meditating, thinking of things, and what came to mind was she's in a journey of developing herself. She's reading Joe Dispenza's books right now, and she's doing the meditations, and she's into a club with him. And she asked me repeatedly for the past few weeks to look at it because it's free. She has the credentials, she's got everything. She says, why don't you, just start? Because I keep saying, I don't understand Joe Dispenza. Like I've read his books first in 2016, 2017. I understand frequency, I understand how the universe works. For whatever reason, his meditations are out of this mind for me. I cannot concentrate, I cannot follow, my mind goes in a different spot. So I'm a little bit on the lighter version of it, and I feel like he's going layers deeper than I can perceive and I can understand right now. So she asked me, and I felt today I was in the gym, and I was doing my push-ups, and then I was pushing for chest. I was working chest. And man, I was down. I did 8 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps. And the last one, I was up to 6. And I needed that extra help. And I'm like, God, if my wife would have been here, like she was with me last week, she would have helped me push through that last rep that I needed. So then I walked away and I'm like, what is she asking me to help her with that last rep, that last push? And it just dawned to me that persistent in looking into Joe Dispenza, that's what she's asking for.
Yeah.
That's what she needs, that extra rep. And I'm not there. I'm missing out on my own relationship. I'm not showing up on one of the most important pillars of my life, my relationship with my wife. And now I had it today, came to me, so she doesn't even know. She's going to probably learn from the podcast, but hopefully by then, before I release this podcast, I'm going to have a chance to say it and actually do it.
The other thing I really should add, and this is kind of branching off what you just said, sometimes it's just super helpful. Go ask your kids, go ask your wife or your husband, whoever's listening to this podcast, what can I do to be a better father, a better husband? What is daddy doing right? What does he need improvements on? What do you want to change? What do you love? Like when you get that feedback from them that is unbiased and like clear cut, it like instead of we always try to figure it out as men,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be vulnerable and just go ask and get that feedback and constantly adjust, right? Like maybe you ask that question every single month as you weigh yourself, each quarter on where that rating is 1 to 10, right? Like what makes daddy a 10 or what makes me a 10 husband? I think those are great questions to open that dialogue and get the feedback you need. And vice versa, right? Like this is a two-way street on all fronts. It's all about improving. So that's
All right. So I picked up on the last question. What makes me a 10 husband for you? But what was the first one? Can you say that again?
It's basically just asking the question, just going to your kids, going to your wife, and just asking the questions. What makes me a 10? What am I doing wrong, and what can I do to improve, or what would make our relationship better? And getting very focused on the feedback that you do get, and then putting action behind it. I think that's a huge thing to do.
Yeah, putting action behind it is actually the intention part of it. Yeah, that's great advice, man. That right there is priceless. It makes this podcast come together. And if you can drop a couple more books for us, because I know you gave me 3. I bought them all. It's just that they're sitting on my desk literally right now. I don't even know which one it is because there are too many now. I had like 20 to 30 books. I didn't get a chance to read them. The reason is I buy the audio version of it.
Yeah.
And some of them I get to them and I can do it in the same time, reading and listening at the same time. But most of them end up in the thing behind me, and they're just some of them I've never opened. They're sitting there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm starting to develop this skill where people could just tell me what problem they have, and I can just like name the book that they ought to go read. Because I try to be very diverse in the things that I do read, not just like all real estate or all business or whatever. I think it is good to have exposure on a lot of things. But when you ask me to recommend other books, is it
relationship? Let's do relationships first, because we're talking about wife, and then we're gonna go back to kids. You already said one, the family board meetings. What about relationships? Like
so the 5 love languages and the 5 love languages for your children. There's 2 books there, and you almost don't even have to read the second one because you can probably figure out from the first book what the love language is of your children. But when I did it for my wife, I was like, oh, I get it now. This is what I need to do, to fill her bucket. And I discovered in myself what mine were so that I could share that with her and she could be a better wife. And then when I finally applied that to my kids, man, did the light bulb go off, because then I figured out what makes them tick. And then you can kind of figure out how to be a better parent on all fronts, right? Like whether it's trying to discipline and teach your kids to what they enjoy and what really fills that attention cup, because all kids want attention, right? Especially from mommy and daddy. So those books were crucial. I just finished a book. I'm trying to remember the name of it, Silvius. It was like leaving your legacy or something like this. Like, well, there was a life well spent. That was one of them. And the other one was about legacy. If you just probably go to Amazon and type in the word legacy book, it'll probably pop up. But it was basically about a book that really hones in on our role as parents and how vital that role is, and why we think that working and making a lot of money is the most important thing for our family, but it's not. We can work anytime and we can always create income, but our kids really want us to be there and be the good parents and give them the attention, give them the principles, teach them the ethics that they need and the values and all this stuff. That's the legacy we leave, right? Because then they have kids, and those kids have kids and kids and kids, from generations to come. And when you think about the power behind that and what that really means, you're like, oh my gosh, like I actually have this huge responsibility that's going to carry into the future forever. And the money I'm making right now, you could create a family business, but a lot of family businesses don't last more than 2 or 3 generations anyway. But
absolutely,
yeah, how we raise our kids, that's leaving the legacy that's going to last for generations. So that concept was what that book was mostly about. And I've read a ton of parenting books because, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I feel like I sucked at being a parent from the time I first was born. And like I saw other parents like, oh, how do they do that? Like they just get it. Me and my wife, we just didn't really get it. Like we weren't like natural parents at the outset. So I've just been constantly reading books to make myself better at child psychology and, you know, things that I want to instill in my kids. Like, this is kind of funny. I created a list of family values that were important to me. I came up with like 31 or 32 that were like really hit home, wrote them out. And my plan is when we go to Iceland this summer is I'm going to hide each family value in a little scroll inside of an Easter egg. And I'm going to hide them on the trails that we hike in Iceland and let my kids discover them. And they're probably not going to keep, you know, the words that are within there, but it'll be setting a foundation so that each time they learn that lesson, they'll remember the experience vividly. And then I'll take that and try to hone that in next year. Because as you know, like, you know, the first 7 or 8 years are crucial. And that's the other thing that I realize is once they're 10 or 11, 12, like they're already going to have their own friends. And all of a sudden we become very unpopular. So you have to always remember that, you know, the first 10 years is your time to teach and your time to connect and your time to really enjoy those vacations with them and the experiences and memories you create. Because after that, it's kind of over. I mean, your kids are still going to be there, but those early years will be gone forever, and you know you can't get those back. So when that hits home, I think that's when the dynamic changes with the relationship. You know, and that's what I have to constantly remind myself. That keeps it in perspective for me. So.
That's such a good analogy, man. Thank you so much. Because I feel like I suck as a parent, and I feel like my wife has it in her. Like somehow she has it inherited genetically. I don't even know how she does it, but to me, she's a perfect mom. She's been home with our kids. She never missed one night without being with her kids, both of them.
That's awesome.
So me, on the other hand, I go to conferences. I fly to Mexico. I go a week here. I go a week there. Like, and I don't have any remorse. Like, I know I got to stop by the airport and buy some souvenirs for the kids, but I feel like I'm doing the development for the businesses. And like you said, if you look at the bigger picture, they don't even last 2-3 generations into it. The money don't even mean anything. But I never thought about it this way. And it's an interesting perspective. And you get it out of the books. And I'm glad you came here and you gave us your time. And I appreciate it so much. The family values, I'm yet to do that. I don't have them yet. How do you do vision boards? Did you create something like that? Do you have something for your kids, or
actually we actually went through the process about a year and a half ago with our kids. They created their own vision board. And of course I've got mine, and I try to make sure that it reflects my 5 and 10 year longer term goals of what actually goes on that vision board. But the family values for me was just, what do I want my kids, like if you were going to die next week, like you had 7 days left, what lessons would you want your kids to have from you to go through their next 50, 80 years of life, right? Like, depending on what age your kids are, that, as they go through their journey of life, like if they knew, like, about hard work, or they knew about being honest, or being, having integrity, being responsible, being loving and giving, like all the things that you want them to have, when you create that list, those are the things that they need to instill now. It's much harder, like with us, like there's a lot of things we had to learn through the mastermind group that weren't obvious to us in our 20s and 30s, right? But I think we had a unique opportunity there. Not all kids are going to have that opportunity. So for me, teaching my kids about money, as an example, they're not going to get that in school. They're probably not going to get it on their own when they go out into the working world. So I feel like it's up to me to teach these kind of things to the best that I can. Kids have a small attention span. I get that. But I just, if I die tomorrow, like I want to make sure that anything that I want to leave as a teaching lesson hopefully gets instilled before I'm gone. So that's my motivation.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've asked myself one of the questions that I should have been asking myself long ago, and that was, what do you want to be remembered as, you, Silvius Grant, and when you're going to be 80 years old or 90 years old, like on your deathbed? And that kind of shook me to the core because it changed the perspective. But now I have another thing that I'm challenged with. I'm trying to be careful with the words I'm using because my subconscious records everything that I say all the time. And I am looking at a business. I want to create a business, but my veil again is money. Like I want to create a business for money. I want to do an investment in real estate for money. I don't know how all these other successful people are always telling me that, well, I did that out of purpose first. I'm like, God damn it, it doesn't doom to me. How can I create a purpose out of an ice cream shop? I'm selling sugar, God damn it. It's not healthy for the universe. It's not good for anybody. But it makes me a profit. And that's the business that I want to do. Why is it so wrong for me to do that? Why can't I just start that? Because I don't have a mission, but it's going to help me financially. So this is the challenge that I'm facing right now. I'm at a crossroad. I sold my portfolio. I'm exiting actually Airbnbs and short-term rentals from this particular spot. I'm not exiting forever. It's just the area that I'm leaving. I want to move. I want to relocate. So I feel like it's time for me to go, move on to the next project. But I also want to lead with a business in order to keep being the provider that I want to be for my family. So I don't want to shake them to the core by daddy going and taking a W-2 job. Even if I have to, I can always take a W-2 job. I'm a land surveyor. I can do this anywhere in the country. It's a well-paid job. My wife can always do anything. Like she's a teacher, she's a bartender, she's restaurant waitress. She can do a lot of other jobs and things. But I'm challenged with this question. How do I do a business that starts with purpose first? Do you have any advice on that?
Well, I do. And this is probably something I should have mentioned at the outset of our call here. I think everybody owes it to themselves to figure out where they want to be, 5, 10, 20 years time, and really map out that and then put the why behind it. So when you ask about purpose or mission, like what is the big why? Why do you want to own an ice cream shop, right? It's like you just said, like are you doing good for society? But like what's the purpose behind that? It's an avenue to do something else with, right? So for me, your big why could be the purpose that you want to have in the world and the legacy you want to leave through perhaps the business that you're in. But at the end of the day, like if you don't have a big why, it's almost like you're not going to be aligned with the universe to
That's what I feel. That's what I feel. I feel that I'm missing this alignment, and every business that I start fails at the end because I lose interest. And the reason why I lose interest is not because the business model doesn't give me the rewards and I don't work hard and I'm not putting everything in it. No, the reason it fails is that I feel misaligned. I feel like the service that I'm providing, it's not genuine. It comes somehow from me looking for profit for myself and my own family. And as I'm developing myself, as I'm learning, giving is the key. I'm like, okay, but I'm always asking, I'm always receiving, I'm always at the other end. How can I be at the other end?
So, and this is not something I do very often, but I can tell you it's probably something you ought to do. Advice given to me, and you've probably heard this before, but ask the question, why 5 times on whatever it is that you're in. So why are you in syndication? And like, okay, so why there? And like, you just keep going down that 5 levels deep. And that's how you get to that root core to get your answer. So as you're exploring other things to do, I'm in the same space right now. I just launched a YouTube channel. And I have to ask myself, okay, why am I doing that? And then and why does that matter? Why does that matter? And as you get down, you get to that core why, and that is the driving motivation to show up, and that's what's going to be the driving motivation for success. Otherwise, you may find that you're going down that wrong path when you can go down that process and then you can get the answer years quicker, without trial and error, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. You know, what's funny? I used to teach this stuff to other people. After you said it, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
My last guy that I was talking to, I told him to do that. And I'm here, I am standing guilty of being too busy in my mind, of not doing the work myself.
This is inherently why we have to surround ourselves with people that can offer the feedback and see the outside perspective to give you the, to basically give you the clarity and the feedback that you need to make better decisions. Because we can't, I don't think anybody can have success going through life by themselves. I think you need to surround yourself with people that can give you the outside perspective and see your self-limiting beliefs, or maybe it's, the blind spots that we don't know about our own personalities or what other thought processes we have. I mean, I have my main pod calls every Tuesday night. I left from that last night and it was like, light bulb goes off every time, hadn't thought about it that way. You got to get that other perspective. So
that's so great. So the overview picture from the other peers, they're keeping you balanced somehow into anchor reality that you live in. That's great, man. Congratulations on everything that you do. And how can we support you with the YouTube channel that you just started? Is it something that I can embed into the podcast details of the show?
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to get it on there. I mean, it's a space right now just for me to get all of my experience out to the world, because I feel like I've got all this experience as a realtor, as a builder, as a short-term rental owner or house flipper, like all this stuff, and I'm like, all right, let me just put out content, see where this goes. It'll probably get more niched into the short-term rental world, but for right now, I'm just putting out videos and getting better at the craft, hopefully over time.
So what's the handle? It is Rory Cummins.
Yeah, you can just probably type in my name, Rory Cummins, on YouTube and find it. It's building wealth with real estate right now. I may morph that into other channels as I move forward. So
okay. Now let me ask you one more question. We're over time already. I enjoyed so much this conversation. It became personal to me, and I apologize if I'm holding you too long. Quick question: what is the next live event that you're going to participate? I just want to see if I can squeeze a little bit of time and get there.
Yeah. So I try to go to at least 2 big events every year. For me this year, it's just the 2 GoBundance events. I joined GoBundance in 21, and they're having another event this October. It's one of their annual events with the big group. So I'll be doing that, and then just trying to meet up with a lot of local folks as well in the mastermind groups, just to try to, get face to face with people and do fun stuff together, just to kind of, put myself out there and keep things relevant. So.
All right, so I'm just going to plug it one more time, guys. Emerge is the name of the group that GoBundance has. Emerge, as you just told me, am I going to have a waiting list starting June, July, I believe. And Emerge is kind of the baby of GoBundance. There are some requirements, income requirements, I think net worth requirements in GoBundance. They keep raising the bar because they're becoming very selective with the people that they're getting in. And Emerge is still available pretty much for everybody at a somewhat regular price. It's one of the communities that I'm looking forward to join. And it's going to happen as soon as I clear a little bit of my schedule, because I'm already in a couple masterminds as we speak. I'm doing 2 of them, and they're hands-on. One is Legends Equity Group Mastermind Community that I'm involved with. And the other one is Front Row Dads, the one that I was just showing the picture. I literally signed up 2 weeks ago, and I'm not up to full speed because I don't really understand their scheduling yet. But these are the 2 ones. Rory, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. This was eye-opening and at the same time a very personal conversation, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I will not be able to join your GoBundance because I'm not a GoBundance member yet. But we'll see what the baby brother is going to do with the Emerge. Okay? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's good. It's fun.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.